Well, the way I'm looking at this, we have 20 days left to enjoy all the cars. And quite frankly, that's sad. That is sad. Fire old girl up, get a cold start for the boys, and get on our merry way. If you didn't know, Bobby and I are getting married. And we are leaving to get married in 20 days. The reason I have 20 days left to drive all the cars is because when we get married, she's making me sell all the cars. I'm kidding. My hypothesis is that when we get back, it's probably gonna be snowing out. And in my opinion, all these expensive builds, can they be driven in the snow? Sure they can. Do I want to? Not really when I got a truck. But today we're gonna be starting on a new project. Well, not a new, but trying to wrap up an existing project that kind of hit the back burner recently. And I'm excited for it, man. This is a car that I spent way too much time, unfortunately way too much money on, and it sits. I don't really ever drive it. A lot of reasons why, but let's go enjoy the Lambo. It's going to be one of the last times I drive this car. A lot of other cars deserve to be driven too before it snows. Not just the Lambo, not just the NSX, but the Evo 8, Bobby's Evo 10, maybe the Supra, the old NSX, stuff like that. Whoa! Sit. Good boy. Good boy. Man, oh man, that looks so cool. Look at that. One of my favorite things that this car has that the NSX doesn't is this front lift. See how high it is right now? Watch this. That's what, a solid 2 inches? Anyways, back on the marriage topic. If you guys didn't know, Bobby and I have been dating for around 8 years now. We've been engaged since the beginning of the year. Pretty quick, I guess you could say, engagement, but there's not really anything to, decide. When you've been together that long, you kind of know. You know what I'm saying? Short engagement, long dating session. That's how it went. Obviously, we didn't plan it that way, but clearly that's what God had in the plans for us. And it all worked out great. No sense in rushing things, in my opinion. Hey, K-Truck. One thing that is a little hairy is we're going to be flying home on the election day. So depending on how this election goes, man, I'm a little worried that this country's going to be kind of crazy. Maybe airports are going to be a little crazy. Not really looking forward to that day. And then, of course, the third thing is, being that we're going to Hawaii, you can't really bring dogs. I mean, if you're moving there, you can bring dogs. They got to quarantine for 10 days, or maybe it's 14 days. Kind of a long process to bring your animal out to Hawaii. And not to mention transport. What are you supposed to do, like ship them in a cardboard box? So Piston's going to be staying home. Not home, but he's going to Connie Corso training school, the best around. He's already trained really, really well. But hey, we figured if we're going to be gone and we can't see him, let's get him professionally trained as well on top of our training, so he's the best of the best. Ain't that right? Warning, ice road, it says. Want to hear something cool? Well, this is it. We are finishing the Type R. Come on, girl. Not bad. Not bad for how long she's been sitting. Didn't even smoke on startup? That's not like a Honda. This thing was filthy, so I got it cleaned up. If you guys aren't really familiar with the build, if you're new here, it's a 2021 Type R. I pulled out the factory K20C, put in a K24, it's a K24A2, converted it to all-wheel drive. From the factory they are just front-wheel drive. So it's an all-wheel drive, K24, obviously a big old turbo. Well, not that big, it's a 6466. Car made right around 800 wheel, and I want to get this thing finished up so we can actually drive it and enjoy it. Before we pull this thing in the shop, let's take it on one last drive and then we can tear it apart. It's probably been 2 months since I've even started the car. Oh man. I wonder how many hours I put into this car. Probably a couple. Hoping within like, let's say 5-6 days of working on this thing non-stop, we should have it to the stage where I want it. It's going to need a retune. We're going to a different, I'll give you a quick synopsis of what I plan on doing. We're going to be going to a different ECU. We need to finish up a catch can setup for the car. I need to finish up the exhaust, so loud you probably can't even hear me. Need to finish up the exhaust. I do really prefer the hood dump on it. I might eventually do a setup where it's on like an electronic valve, electronic cutout, to where I can change it from either the hood dump or the catback. I think that'd be pretty cool to have. That's in the future though. And then I'm just gonna be simplifying the build, ditching the AC system that I don't really ever care to get working at this point. I'm still gonna keep it just in case if I get the random itch to get AC working on this car, we can. The thing is, I really want it to work through the factory controls. Everything is canvas on this car being so new, and that was looking to be pretty difficult. So for now, I'm just gonna simplify the entire engine bay and kind of just get this thing to a stage where I can jump in and drive it. It's not such a built car to where we couldn't do that. So yeah, that's kind of the plan. The main thing being a new ECU, redoing the engine wiring harness, kind of cleaning all that up, cleaning up the bay, and finishing up the hood exit exhaust. That's the plan, man. I love driving this car. The sound of the straight cut gears, they're amazing. Sound of the big old turbo with the hood dump right in your face, sounds amazing. Such a fun car to drive. I might do one pull. One light pull in the car. See how she goes. It's pretty turned down right now, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been forever since I drove this thing, but it's probably on like 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds right now. Yep, it still rips. Still freaking rips. Let's do something cool. All right, to start, I want to get this thing torn back down to pretty much the drivetrain inside the car. So bumper off, whole front core support off. I want to redo some of the wiring, like the power and ground situation. Of course, the engine harness will get redone when we go to the new ECU. So let's tear this entire front end back off. So I have the entire front end off. It's so nice that the whole clip just comes off in one. Here's how it looks with that clip off. So much space to clean everything up. So a couple things. This little box right here is pretty much a junction box. The only thing we will be using in this box after we go to our new ECU or our new PDM is the starter wire and this harness here, which is for the backup camera because it goes to that reverse sensor. So instead of having this giant box just in the way, we can put all that on one single Deutsch connector and really clean all this up. So that's one thing I'll be doing. This guy right here, this is a distribution block. So power comes in from the battery, which is in the trunk, comes in here, and then goes out to starter and alternator. As you can see, not a clean setup whatsoever. So I will definitely be redoing that as well. But for now, let's go ahead and work on getting this guy out of the way. It is 4 hours later and I am finally completed with what I started off with. Of course, as always, things got way out of hand. So this is essentially everything that we removed. That little junction box is now removed. All of this wiring, so much stuff we were able to pull off the car and consolidate into this nice looking OEM looking harness. The main goal with that was to get the box removed. It was just pointless. There were so many wires going into it, 4 wires coming out. So now that that's finished up, the next thing I want to tackle today is the power distribution. So this is currently our power distribution block. It works. It's not the best thing in the world. It's kind of janky. It's just a unit off of Amazon. And like I said, man, it works, but I don't know. I don't love it. What I do love is Evos. I'm kind of trying to make this thing an Evo anyway. All-wheel drive, turbo. So I might as well take an Evo distribution block and mount it on the car. Now, one of the reasons this doesn't work all that well is because if we need to jump the car, the battery's in the trunk. In order to get into the trunk, that hatch needs to open. In order to open the hatch, you need power. So really the only way to jump this thing is from the engine bay, which isn't a big deal. That's nearly impossible to get to when the car is complete. So when I take this Evo one and mount it, I'm kind of thinking if we mount it right up in there, nice and clean, kind of lower, not hidden, still accessible, but it's an OEM part, so I think it looks good. And if we mount it just like that, we have enough clearance with the intercooler pipe that this thing should work phenomenal in that location. So let's go ahead and build a bracket. I'll probably just come out off the bottom of the frame rail, bolt it to the bottom of the frame rail, bolt this to the bracket, and then we can redo the power distribution. All that comes off of the power distribution is power for the fuse box, which is located right here, the alternator and starter, which these wires, they're massive. They're way overkill. We don't need anything nearly that big. I'll probably just take some OEM Evo wires and slap them on here and call that a day. Here's my very complex mount, a flat piece of aluminum, and it's gonna bolt right there. I like it. That is where that is gonna sit. As you can see, clears the intercooler piping just fine. Now let's go ahead and do the power. So the power comes in right here, and then power goes out through these fuses. So this is what I ended up with. Distribution block here, alternator and starter wires run here underneath the intake manifold. Starter connects there, alternator of course connects there. Much better, much cleaner, easier to work on, and most importantly, if we need to jump the car, bam. Pop the hood, reach down, pull off the cover, jump the car. Next thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and remove the AC. Couple different reasons. First off, probably never gonna use it. Maybe once or twice a year I'll use the AC on this car. Second of all, this is gonna go here, so this can go here to make space for our catch can that's gonna sit right here. Third, I want an additional fan, and really the only space for it, being that the charge pipe is on this side, would be on the front of the radiator, pushing air through on that side. But of course, the AC condenser is in the way of that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pull the AC off the car. Makes life easier, and like I said, man, I'll never use it. I don't have that relocation kit in yet to put the alternator where it's gonna sit, but that's easy, we can do that later on. All that's ripped out of the way. Last thing I want to go ahead and pull off for the night is the actual engine harness itself. It's going to be completely different how it's routed. As of right now, everything runs over the valve cover underneath that spark plug cover, and then kind of comes down this side. Most likely, I'll run it the opposite way when I build the new engine harness. I don't love how this one's set up. It works, but it could be a whole lot better, in my opinion. The entire engine wiring harness is out of the way. I'm happy to have this car back in this state. Everything else that is done on the build right now is up to my standard. How the drivetrain is set up is great. It's got a fully built motor, fully built transmission. There's no need to take anything else off. So I feel like this is a pretty good stopping point here. Now let me show you guys something real quick. This is one of the main reasons, well, this is a reason, I guess you could say, as to why we're going away from our current setup and we're going to a new ECU. So when you run an Elite 2500, you don't have to, but you should have a relay box and a fuse box. It's a good idea to fuse everything on the engine like you would in a traditional car. So that's what I did here. Now, of course we could go through and get this cleaned up a little bit better, but what we're gonna be putting in is gonna be so much better for how complicated this setup on this car is. If it was just a simple K24 in like an old EK or something like that, they make all the adapters and everything to adapt it back to the factory harness, but I pretty much had to build everything from scratch. I'm not a big fan of how it turned out. We can do a whole lot better. So that is what we're gonna do. Well, friends, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the video right here. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm super excited to get this Type R up to my standard, I guess you could say, up to my spec, and get it retuned, get this thing on the road, get it enjoyable. There was other little things that I knew weren't working properly, like for example, the fans, or that one fan wasn't coming on. Would have been an easy fix, but I knew all those little things could easily just be resolved when we change up the setup. So that's what we're doing. Good state to have the car in. It's gonna be much more simple to build our engine harness now, and we'll move on from there. Goodbye, good night.